Note that everything depicted in this video is open for debate, and I cannot confirm its authenticity.
The date is June 29th, 2008, 6:32 p.m. I'm creating this message to let the people of the world, or whoever happens to hear this, know the truth about what is going on with regards to the alien presence in our world, as well as interstellar space and within our own solar system. I myself am a worker in one of the underground bases located near Groom Lake. I have done my work there for the past 8 years, and within the next coming months will be discharged. Now, what I'm going to tell you, you may want to take with a grain of salt, but I assure you, everything that I am about to say is truth, is fact, and whether you know it or believe it or not, everything that I will tell you is common knowledge within the Black Ops community at the most highest and secretive levels. Now, as I said, I've worked inside an underground base near Groom Lake for the past 8 years, and have done my work there as a researcher and analyst, working within the realm of the ET program, as we call it, or as it's known in the Black Ops community as G28. What we do here is research, analyze, and investigate the extraterrestrial presence within our solar system and other dimensions. And what I'm going to tell you today is the truth about what is going on. I will try not to be too vague in my revelations. However, I do not want to say too much, as I have already committed a felony in the eyes of our government just by speaking on the subject. And I will be leaving soon after my discharge. And I have asked the owner of this video, to which I'm sending, not to publicize this video for at least 2 years after its recording, to ensure my safety as well as theirs. Now, as I've said, and let me make this clear, the presence of alien beings and the technology does exist. It is real as you or me, and it's a whole lot more out there than even the most diehard believers could possibly fathom. The truth is that we, and by we I mean this planet and the people of this planet, are in essence blind to what is really going on in the cosmos and interstellar space. What people call aliens, we call IBs, or in layman's terms, interdimensional beings. And what we found out and have known about since the early 70s is that, in simplest terms, other dimensions or planes, as we call them, exist and lay on top of each other, almost stacked, as if you had a blanket with another blanket stacked on top of it and another blanket stacked on top of it. To explain it so you can understand, you can imagine the Earth and our reality as a thin blanket, and all of these other higher dimensions are the blankets laying directly on top of ours. However, we can only see our own blanket. Now, the alien beings, or the ships that we have seen in videos, and that many people have captured over the years, are in fact what we call jumpers, in that they exist in their relative dimensions, but have in fact jumped into ours. We have discovered that most of the time we are unable to see them, as they are at a wavelength indifferent to our own, and our senses, eyes and ears, cannot detect. from the information that I have gathered and been briefed on, every planet, star, and galaxy within our own plane and universe, as we see it, exists also in these other dimensions. We've detected that we know of and that I've been briefed on at least 4 other dimensions that do exist. Now, as I said, every planet we know of, every galaxy does exist in these other dimensions. However, with each new dimension, each planet, galaxy, star takes on a different form. To explain it in the most simplest terms, you can look at our own planet, Jupiter, which is in the outer reaches of our solar system. Now, to us, it's a deadly gaseous planet, completely uninhabitable. However, when you look at Jupiter in an elevated dimension, you will see that it has completely changed in all forms. You will see that it's no longer a deadly ball of gas, but is now solid, has a different color, and is now inhabited. We know for a fact this is true due to the fact that the government has the technology to detect these higher dimensions and actually get a small view of what the solar system looks like on the other side, as we call it, in these other dimensions. There is much we do not know about the universe and how it works. However, here are the facts that I can confirm as truth and were made known to me, and that I and the other people that I worked with have been briefed on. Now, we are not alone in the universe. There are alien beings within our own dimension of space, as well as other dimensions. The planet Earth is an early stage, I guess you could say, training ground, if you will, whereby which we as beings will live until we advance to the higher dimensions. Now, we are not the bottom of the food chain, and we have discovered that there are at least 2 dimensions below our own plane. But that is as far as I will go regarding that. Now, I'm getting a little bit low on time, so I will leave you with a few other important things that people will no doubt want to know about later in time once this video is made public. Now, these are things that I have been briefed on by my superiors and that are common knowledge in the Black Ops community. Now, the planet that we know of as Mars was at one time inhabited, but again, at one time was wiped out by the people who inhabited the planet, which were much more technologically advanced than we are, which we discovered by testing and analyzing the chemical residue found from the blasts around the planet, as well as artifacts that we've also discovered on the planet, including the infamous glass tubes seen in the few of the publicly made photographs from NASA. Now, these are not glass structures, but a glass-like material that is about 1,000 times stronger than any material or steel that we have on our own planet. These tubes were used as a means of travel underground and above ground by the people who inhabited this planet. It is thought from our research that there are still an ET presence inhabiting Mars, but again, this is as far as I will go, and that I was briefed on regarding that matter. Now, I'm not trying to be completely vague, but I am trying to give you a picture of what is going on out there that doesn't completely put me in more danger than I am already in just by revealing the few things that I have. One of the last things that I will reveal, and that is definitely a fact, and that I have been briefed on, and that many other people involved with the Black Ops community have been briefed on, and that is our own moon, which does in fact have alien bases on it, and also has bases from our own government. Now, there is an ET presence, which is primarily located on the dark side of the moon. The Apollo program was in all actuality a reconnaissance mission so that we could research what was exactly there and who. You will notice that many of the photos from the Apollo missions have airbrushed out buildings and bases, and this is the truth of the matter. About half of the video that you will see that is documented from the Apollo missions was in fact shot here on Earth at Area 51. In fact, if you look at satellite imagery, you can actually see what's left of a crater field created at Area 51 that was used in the filming. Now, the truth is that most of the footage from the moon was simply cluttered with bases, with alien buildings, and from what one astronaut said, and I'm quoting, what were a constant presence of alien vehicles flying over the surface, cluttering up the footage. So again, they showed the American people what they could and recreated the rest here on Earth that they couldn't show. From what we know, the dark side of the moon is where most of the alien presence is located. It's a more primitive alien race from what we can see, and our research tells us. It's more primitive than the alien beings you would see on higher dimensions, but still thousands, if not millions of years ahead of us. Now we have our own bases, which are primarily located in or near the Sea of Tranquility, which is the site of Apollo 11, and also one base that I know of located near the crater Sabine D. To this day, we are still sending secret missions to and from the moon. However, I do not know the complete details of what we are doing there. Now, one of the things that is widely discussed throughout the world, and from what I've seen on the internet and various talk shows on the subject, is whether the Earth is actually hollow, along with other planets that are out there that seem to have openings at the poles. This is true for Saturn, Jupiter, Venus, Mercury, Mars. There are various images out there you can search for. If you will just look, you can actually see aurora borealis coming from the poles of these planets. Some of these planets which have no business having an aurora borealis effect, so it begs the question, what is going on to cause this, and where does the Earth's aurora borealis actually come from? To put it in simplest terms, and this is verified, and it may be hard to believe, although it is true, once you do the work that I've done and others like me have done, you will soon find out that a lot of the things you used to think could never be deemed as real or nothing more than fiction turn out to be in fact real. And it seems that life is stranger than fiction sometimes. Let's just put it that way. The aurora borealis of Earth is actually coming from openings at the North and South Poles. Now, is the Earth hollow? Does it have a central sun? Does it have land masses on the inside with a central star? From what we know, there are confirmed openings at the North and South Poles of Earth. General Byrd, in the 50s, flew a mission to one of the poles. It is documented. Fleets of ships and aircrafts were taken to the pole and subsequently driven out by a fleet of UFOs or AVs. We established that there was an alien presence coming from these openings at the poles. as far as the government is concerned, we don't believe that there is a central star inside the Earth and that the Earth is hollow. However, we do believe that there are many underground passageways and an underground presence of extraterrestrial life that goes down up to 20 miles beneath the surface of the Earth, with the two poles, the North and South poles, being the main entrances of where these UFOs and ET beings come out of. We believe that they have been there for at least thousands of years and have set up some sort of underground community. We have documented these fleets of ships coming from the poles, flying up over Mexico in the early 90s, and there is documentation on this also. There was a fleet of literally thousands of UFO disc-like saucers that were seen flying in fleets over Mexico heading toward the southern United States. Now, our Air Force, as well as the Air Force from Canada and a few other departments and countries from South America also, were scrambled to intercept these saucers, and we were able to drive these saucers back to the southern pole from which they came. We are not sure what type of weaponry they do have, what their purpose is, what they are planning, or why they are coming to the surface and flying in our airspace. That we do not know. Every time the government has attempted to send a probe or satellite in orbit to fly over the poles, it either ends up being lost, shut down, or destroyed by an unknown means. We are not sure. We believe these satellites and probes are being purposely knocked out of orbit by this extraterrestrial presence. We have sent spy planes as well as drones, the same types of drones that are used in Iraq and Afghanistan to fly over the poles. And for what we can see, the closest point at the pole right near the opening, the surrounding area for about 50 miles is completely warm. It is 80 degrees Fahrenheit. It is warm. There is vegetation. There is grass. There are mountains. It is not the horribly cold terrain that the rest of the North and South poles are known for. You will see that once the farther that you come inland into the center where the polar opening is, the more greenery and the rapid temperature increase you will see. So there is a definite reason for the openings of these entrances at the poles. There is something that is heating those entrances and heating the surrounding area. The radius of 50 miles it's a large area, which obviously means there is something heating, and we've confirmed that the aurora borealis is coming from inside of the polar openings, which leads us to believe there is something within these poles that is causing this heat and light source to be coming out, although we are not sure. Again, we do not believe there is a central star due to the common laws of gravity. However, I have been briefed, and it's basically on a need-to-know basis. However, what I have heard is that what we know as gravity is not correct. What we have found out that gravity does not come from the mass of the planet and the gravity of the planet. What we have found that gravity is actually magnetic and is actually created through the energy of the sun, from the magnetic properties of the light coming from the sun is actually what creates gravity as we know it and holds us onto the planet. And there is documentation on this also, that any planet or moon or circular object out in the cosmos that at least has a mass and radius of 21 miles can have gravity. Now we are still investigating exactly how this gravity works, but what we have found out is that most of these extraterrestrial crafts, or AVs, alien vehicles, do manipulate light and use our sun as well as other stars as a main source of controlling these extraterrestrial vehicles. If you will do some research on that, there is some documentation found on the internet as well as published in some books that you may have trouble finding. There are also some scientific journals that were published by some very high-up scientists speaking of the effects of the sun and with regards to gravity. But I assure you that gravity does not come from the mass of the object, but does in fact come from the sun. No, I guess you could say one of the biggest questions that you will see most people asking is whether the Roswell crash actually happened or really was a weather balloon that crashed in the Nevada desert. And I will go ahead and answer that for you now. And this is an answer that I think most of us already know, especially most die-hard researchers know in their hearts to be truth, is that an alien craft did crash in Roswell. Well, it actually wasn't actually in Roswell. It was actually 15 or 20 miles outside of Roswell. But the craft did crash. There were alien bodies recovered from the craft. It was a disc-shaped craft. We did take the bodies to a base in Fort Worth, Texas. General Ramey did come to the crash site. He is the man you will see in many of the Roswell photos taken that day of the men holding up the remains of the weather balloon. These are staged photos, of course, and General Ramey you will see dressed up in his fatigues, and he's holding the famous Ramey memo. Now, if you haven't heard of the Ramey memo, it's a letter that you will see in most of these photos where General Ramey is present. It is in General Ramey's hand, and in all of the photos except one, the letter is turned away. But there is one photo, and you can look this up and find it online. There's one photo where the letter is actually turned almost completely toward the camera. And in the photo, you can see General Ramey sort of hunched over with this letter in his hand, looking over as a few other military men are holding up the remains of this failed weather balloon. Well, a few years back, a man named Dave Rudiak, who was a researcher for the International UFO Museum, and was also head of the computer department of the university in Roswell, and also spent time in the Army as a cryptographer. He took that letter from that photograph and decoded most of the message that was visible on it. And this is one of the biggest smoking guns, although the story has actually been greatly ignored, which is kind of sad for the whole UFO community, because this really is a smoking gun. You may be able to find videos online. I believe Sci-Fi did a video with a segment with Dr. Rudiak, and you will see that he decoded the message on it and made out many words such as disc, victims of the wreck, transporting the victims to Fort Worth, and other words that were made out. He basically took the letter, enlarged it with computer graphics software, and matched the types together and came out with the correct letters. And again, there are videos on it online where you can go and see the segments. The photograph was taken on July 8th, 1947 by a news photographer for a newspaper, Bon Johnson, I believe his name was. He still has the original negative of that photo. I don't know if we'll ever get the actual copy of that released. But in regards to the crash, it did happen. To my knowledge, 3 alien bodies were taken. They were what we would call grays. Grays, an interesting thing about grays, there are 2 distinct races, if you will, of gray aliens. Well, I don't know if you would call the second one really a race, seeing as that they are not actually alive, but are actually created. They are machines, they are robots, if you will. They are cyborgs. I'll try to explain it a little bit more in depth for you, but there are 2 kinds of alien grays, which is, the alien type with the big elongated head, large black eyes, small nose, small mouth, small body, short, 3 to 4 feet tall. There are 2 races. The actual race of grays are, for the most part, benevolent. They do not mean any harm. They are thousands upon thousands upon thousands of years ahead of us. They do fly in disc-shaped craft, as well as others, but mostly smaller disc-shaped craft, which fit their body types perfectly. Many of the UFOs that we have seen on video with discs, including photographs, are in reality real. They are real crafts, although it's hard to tell which photographs are fact or faked, but many of them, and I've seen many copies of them, photographs showing these disc-like objects. There is also video from the Roswell crash showing the bodies of the aliens. That too I have seen, and that footage is being kept locked inside a vault at Langley, never to be seen again. Now, as I said, the alien race of grays is for the most part benevolent. They have visited the Earth and will continue visiting. They actually made their presence known in the 50s, not too long after Roswell, to the world governments. And at that time, the alien beings made, I guess you could say, an agreement or contract, if you will, even though there's not any real way to make a contract or anything like that with alien beings, but there was an agreement made with these alien grays and the world's major governments that these beings could come and take a certain preset amount of people and plants and animals to do research on. And in return, they would give the governments access to their technology. The agreement was not upheld. The world governments did not stick to their agreement. The agreement was also that the world governments would eventually, at a set date, have to reveal that the presence of aliens is a reality to the world. They needed to disclose that information, and the world governments disobeyed that, and to this day have not revealed that aliens do exist and there is life out there. And so the alien beings demanded that if the world governments did not reveal this information to the world, to the public, that the beings would reveal it themselves. They would reveal themselves, and they would do this by appearing in large metropolitan cities all over the world in large fleets of ships and discs, so it would be impossible for anyone to deny the fact that they existed. They would show themselves all over the world because, according to the Greys, the world is on it's basically on the brink of entering a new age and a new dimension and a new state of being. We are getting smarter, we're growing as a race, we're growing as a planet, and it's time for the planet as a whole to take the next step into basically what we call a type 1 planet. Right now we're a type 0 planet, but we are on the brink of becoming a type 1 planet, and according to the Greys, for the world to make that transition, we as mankind would need and basically have a right to know that there is life and that these beings are visiting us. They specifically told the world governments that they needed to tell the public that there is life out there in the universe and to explain to the public the real origins of mankind, where we truly come from, how we got here, because the true history is a lot different from what they're telling us in the textbooks. What we know right now and the theories that we have, evolution and creationism and all this stuff, it's not correct. Okay? It is not correct. I assure you that the extraterrestrials had a large part in how our planet formed, why we are here, and if the governments of the world do not reveal to the public this information by a set date, which I believe is around 2012 or 2013, then the alien beings will make their presence known with or without the consent of the world governments. However, the alien Greys, as well as others, although I can't confirm it, I can confirm that the alien Greys have continued to take people and animals and plants from the earth in order to probe and research them. So they have continued to do that, and they no longer give any technology to the world governments. I do know that, especially since the world governments broke their agreement. However, we are coming to the brink of true disclosure, because one way or another, whether our governments let us know or it's them who has to let us know, it's going to happen. It's either going to happen with the president coming on the TV and telling the world what the truth is, or it's going to happen by walking outside out of our homes or getting home from work and looking up in the sky and seeing large fleets of crafts sitting overhead in the sky. It's going to happen one way or another. But it did happen. There was a crash. The crash at Roswell was caused due to the gravity conditions on Earth. There was an issue with the anti-gravity technology that the alien disk was using, and there was an issue, and that from what we could tell was the original reason that the disk crashed in the first place. Although they are thousands of years ahead of us, it's not impossible that they also, too, like us, can have issues with their craft and machinery. It very, very rarely happens, but the specific day at Roswell, that was one of the times that they had an issue with their craft and they went down, and we've kept it a secret for years. We've lied to the American people and have continued to lie to the American people and the world. Every time you see a UFO or a new video come out, the world governments are quickly to deny it or completely fabricate a story to explain it. Either way, they are not telling the truth.